Welcome to the channel. In this video series, I'm going to be giving you the no BS guide to sharpening. If you're new to woodworking or you've been woodworking for a while and just can't seem to figure it out, stick with me because I'm going to give you a simple and straightforward guide so that way you can sharpen your irons quick and get back to work. This is video number 2 in the no BS guide to sharpening. In this video, we're going to be talking about grits and primary bevels versus micro bevels. I know I said it out of order, but I want to start with primary bevels and micro bevels. So what that means, this main one right here is the primary, and then if you see that little sliver at the top, that's the micro, okay? When you are setting primary bevels, we're not going to talk about angles, that's the next video. When you're setting primary bevels, you have to work through your progression of grits. So you start at a low one, and then you work your way up until whatever you want your final stone to be. Some people are against using micro bevels because they say it changes it by a degree, which doesn't matter. We'll talk about that next. But they also just don't like how they look. I don't care what it looks like. I want to sharpen fast and get back to my work. So micro bevels make that quick for you. So when you're using a micro bevel, you're only going to your finishing stone, hitting your strop or whatever, and calling it a day, okay? If you're not going to use a micro bevel and you're just going to have primary bevels, when that edge gets weak, you have to sharpen the whole primary bevel again, which to me just takes too long. And I don't recommend doing that freehand. You got to set it up in some sort of jig, sharpen the whole thing again until you feel a burr. If you're using a micro bevel, you don't have to use a jig. I'll show you guys how to freehand in the last video. It's a lot easier than you think. You just do your micro bevel, you get a burr. When that edge gets weak, you do another one, get a burr. When that edge gets weak, do another one, okay? That's how micro bevels work. So when they do talk about it changing angles, it does, but I don't want you guys to stress on that. Again, we'll talk about that in the next video. Now, when it comes to your finishing stone, when I mentioned that, I sharpen to 1,000. I hit my strop, I call it a day. Now when you have a strop with compound, that's equivalent to a 12K or a 16K stone. If you guys watch Rob Cosman and a lot of the other woodworkers out there, they hit a 16K stone, but they don't use a strop. So those are your options. You can get a strop because it's cheap and less maintenance, or you can get an expensive finishing stone that requires maintenance. That's why I went with a strop. So it's cheap to get a piece of leather, stick it down to a piece of wood, load it with some compound, and then you're done. After a couple months, if it starts getting really loaded, you scrape that extra compound off with a razor blade, load it up again, and you're done. With a finishing stone, again, they're expensive. You also have to keep water handy, you have to make sure that they're flat, make sure that they're maintained, that kind of stuff. Now, some guys want to argue that they go to 40K, 60K, 20K, whatever it is. You don't need to, and it actually makes your edge weaker. So there's studies out there that show if you go above 3K, the edge doesn't last as long. So let me explain what that means. If I'm sharpening this chisel to 40K, you got to think about this point is getting thinner and thinner. So at 40K, I'm going to take a couple swipes with it, and then it's down to 20. Take a couple more swipes, then it's down to 18, so on and so forth. So you have to maintain that edge more. So if you're going to 40, doing a couple swipes, you got to hit it at 40 again, couple swipes, hit it at 40, couple swipes, so on. If you're going to the strop with compound or a 16K stone, you don't have to maintain it as often. You can do a lot more swipes with it, maintain it on that stone, a lot more swipes, maintain it on that stone, so on and so forth. The guys that say they need it for very, very fine paring cuts, I've been woodworking since 2018 and I've never needed to do that, so the choice is yours. I'm just trying to tell you that you don't need to go high grits and you don't need to spend a lot of money on high grits. Get $1,000 sandpaper, $1,000. Get 1,000 grit sandpaper, 1,000 grit stone, diamond plate, ceramic, whatever it is. Go to a strop and then you're done. I've been doing that for years and I've had zero issues with it at all. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any questions or anything like that, feel free to let me know down below. In the next video, we are going to be talking about angles, so keep an eye out for that one. Don't forget to like and subscribe.